Hey everybody. Okay, so we're gonna do a gaming video because it's Tuesday. We're gonna try this again. My stomach is upset, and this is part of it. Is that we have a problem in online gaming communities, which is people have no chill. There's this weird anthropomorphizing of games as if a game is a thing with a life force of its own and feelings that one can be killed instead of turned off, but also two can love you or hate you. And games are complex toys. And we really need to talk about this because if a set of dice don't hate you, if a ball can't hate you, then a game can't hate you either. And this is when people go, the developers hate us. Developers don't know you as an individual. And there's this blurring of the lines between a game exploring themes or issues and a game being political. And there's no point discussing this. People are too hardened in their opinions. People are just going to freak out and not listen. So again, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the issue of games as challenge, meaning like moral challenge, versus games as validation. And this has been inspired by, because I hurt my thumb, I've gone back and I've been playing point and click games. So I've been finishing off the original Trails in the Sky, Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, instead of the remake. And in playing that, I have found about the controversy surrounding the remake and the idea that the game has been wokeified when, I'm playing through the original game. It's pretty progressive for its era. Female lead, non-traditional character, content that leans more progressive than conservative, especially for a Japanese game. Now, the original localization for English was done by Xseed, and they took liberties. And part of the Estelle Bright that everybody knows and loves was, instead of just translating word for word, the Xseed localizers decided to do things like change, Estelle's like a very early line to "Why is my present a boy?" Instead of, I think the original translation, the proper translation is "Who is this boy?" from the Japanese. And obviously, "Why is my present a boy?" is exceptionally quotable. And good job, Xseed. Similar things like ultra violence, Estelle lines. This, you can't do that in the way that Japanese is structured. And obviously that's a Clockwork Orange reference. And so the Xseed developers decided to go, okay, this is who we think Estelle is as a character. We are going to punch up her dialogue accordingly. But this is a change from the original developer intent. Now, Gung Ho in the remake has gone closer to the original Japanese, and people are screaming woke accordingly. And this, let me do help support this channel, and we'll get into what I think is going on here, giving people maximum benefit of the doubt. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Really, really helps with videos like this that don't go into any direct revenue stream and are something of a risk. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Games like Trails in the Sky are really interesting conversation points for people in those one-on-one sessions. But what I think is happening is there's this emotional response when a game, especially something like a remake or a remaster, doesn't comfort or seem to understand you the way the original did. And of course, even that games don't understand you. You understand the game. But because it's interactive, we tend to give the toy a face, right? We like making things into more human terms. That tends to be the way most people understand things. So, oh, this game loves me, this game accepts me. And no, it doesn't. Like, a development team wrote a script that aligns with your worldview. That's all that happened. And this stuff is incredibly, incredibly subjective. I mean, I'm a big fan of the original Gears of War and original God of War games. I don't like the more modern Gears games, so I stopped playing them. Was that disappointing? Sure. Did I freak out because there are too many pretty boys in it and that's not my Gears? No. Similarly, the original God of War games took a lot of crap. And there's this belief that the modern God of War games have kind of nerfed Kratos, but that's not true. Kratos is still the same guy. Everything that happened in the old games happened. He's just started a new family and has a kid now that's alive. Very different life circumstances. And when we just do this, layman as expert in games writing, where someone just voices their opinion, and why should we care about their opinion? Well, because they're on a website like, Polygon or something like that. We've lost the fact that these are, in a lot of cases, non-expert opinion. The person hasn't really worked on games. They haven't really studied games. Like, what are their qualifications that we should listen to them? And often they're not even things that are... Let me back up a bit on that one. Because there are so many people who got college degrees to go to college to get a degree because you're supposed to. People have this really bad habit of expressing opinion in commentary writing like fact. And it's transferred into YouTube, it's transferred into TikTok. And so instead of going, this was my experience with this game, you have to pound the table like you're writing this essay in college and, make a strong thesis and support your argument and be assertive. And I really don't think that's the best way to go about these conversations. I think with games, because the experience can be very individualized with multiple endings, multiple midpoints, different play styles, that no game site will do it because it's too expensive. But the reason I love to do things like, the thing we did on Claire Obscure with men liking stuff is everybody talked about, the ending they preferred and the characters they preferred. And it was no real kind of good or bad. It was, why did you like this? And that is an inherently validating process. Games as validation is very, very centered in a lot of people's lives. People use them as a cope. People use them as stress relief. This makes sense. But games as a challenge, and I'm not talking just difficulty. It's interesting to me that the very hard games contingent has this huge overlap with, this game is woke. So they can handle, press button challenge, reaction time challenges, input skill. But they can't handle more social or, emotional challenges. If something doesn't make them feel centered, they really struggle. And I would rather, and this is never going to happen, again, because the structures and, quite frankly, the emotional and social skills are not there. But I would rather break down, let's take the word woke out. Oh my God, stop. And let's stop talking about the game hating you or they hate the fans, talking to referring to the developers. And let's talk about what you actually didn't like. Well, it's woke. Well, why is it woke? Well, because there's a black guy in Japan. Well, Yasuke's a real historical figure. He wasn't a samurai. It's like, it doesn't matter if he was a samurai or not. He's a samurai in the game for 5 fucking minutes. It was such a bizarre, not even 5 minutes. He's a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, spoiler, long enough to get on a horse and be a mascot, and then his sponsor dies, and so now he's a Ronin. But who cares if he was or was not traditionally a samurai in the historical record in a game franchise that has most of the founders of America, guys like Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, working for an Assassin's League. That wasn't historical either, right? Do we argue about whether Edward Kenway was really a pirate? Was he a privateer? Was he a pirate? Did he have letters of marque? No, we don't fight this way. This is finding a space for the emotional reaction. And I admit, when I saw the Trails in the Sky remake, I don't find the 3D animation as charming. Estelle, to me, is too conventionally pretty. They frequently, in the original game, reference that she's kind of boyish. She's not very feminine. She's not that attractive. And, I like that. That was, different to me. And so, to me, the remake just didn't work. I don't like bland anime face. But as I say, I don't like it, not that it was bad. Similarly, I like, people say his name's Niall. See, I don't know how these names are pronounced because I played in text. So apparently it's agate, not agate, as I was saying. Niall's this sort of, I said Neil initially, but he's this stereotypical chain-smoking, burned-out journalist who looks 50 when he's like 30. And he's a little yassified in the remake. I don't enjoy it as much. I like bigger characters. But there are some people who just like everything pretty, with pretty people and pretty boys, and everybody has to be a K or J-pop idol. Okay. It's not bad or good. It's preference. The problem is we have all been so trained to just swing for the fences in our opening because, so many people paid all this money for a college degree, hey, they're not using. And even if they are using it, they've been trained in a particular type of academic essay writing that works for academia, but doesn't actually persuade your average person terribly well. There's a reason that a lot of, organizations like the New York Times that have a lot of commentary writing, it's got this whole stable of like full-time commentary writers, and they've changed their format to have more dialogue. So they'll have like the last one I read was David Brooks, who's a conservative leaning commentator that I happen to like, with somebody more left wing, and it was about kind of the No Kings protests and the pros and cons of that and everything like that. I thought it was really good because it represented multiple sides, but it also demonstrated a collegiality among people that, really don't agree on much. And I did notice that there were a few times that, David Brooks kind of made fun of himself, and the left-wing person got a little aggressive, and the moderator kind of very gently hey, we're all friends here kind of thing. But it was interesting to see both sides, as opposed to that very academic pound the table with your particular thesis. I think that's what we're in. There's an appetite for that. The problem is you do that on the internet, both sides are going to get attacked. And what's interesting to me about the structure of this, and people hate when I discuss structure, and they don't understand what I'm doing here, because this isn't a question of good, bad. This is a question of, let's see how the gears work. Because what I see is people advocating challenge, learn to handle criticism, while seeking for themselves validation. I want games that don't hate me. See how that goes? And it's no different from, this did not start here, the thing is. You wind back to like 2010 through 2012, when tropes were against women, as opposed to tropes being tools, that might be overused. Like, yes, there were too many goddamn damsel in distresses. Does that mean there's anything wrong with the shorthand of an innocent being imperiled to move the plot forward and show why the villain is a bad person? No. That you just don't get a ton of points for originality in big money anything. Have you seen network television? I've just stopped watching because I don't want another crime show. I don't want another medical show. Like, oh my God, they can be the best ones in the world. I'm bored. But lowest common denominator, right? These are guarantees. AAA games is the same way. But, you cannot be persuasive when you want for yourself something you're not willing to give to other people, or you are offering challenge, grow a thicker skin, learn to handle criticism, you're this, you're that, shut up, just stop, you don't want to be harassed, stop talking. That's what they're putting out there. When what they're saying they want is, I don't want politics in my games. I just want games to be fun. I want consumer protections. I want consumer-friendly products. This is a consumer revolt. Consumer moral, right? Problem is that if you're telling other people to grow a thicker skin and learn to handle criticism, or you're telling people to address their own bigotries and, don't just go back to the same well again and again and again and again, the most persuasive thing you can do is show you can handle it yourself. But that's not what catches fire in gaming. What I find people connect to, and hear me out on this, okay, is victimhood. Especially if it's a little guy protagonist. Right? I'm not the right person to do this, and I didn't want to do this, but they're killing our games, right? Like, okay, if you're not the person to do this, find somebody who is, because if you think this is very important, be fucking responsible. Oh, now I'm going to get nastiness in the comments section, but the point is valid. Logically, that rhetorical argument doesn't make sense years in. But emotionally, it's extremely powerful, right? I'm being harassed by all these misogynists that don't want a woman talking about games. Here's this clip reel I did of all the shit I took, instead of some sort of objective analysis of how much feedback was positive, how much feedback is negative. Expecting none of that is not reasonable. And instead of going, they're misogynist, I am being harassed, how about you take the opportunity to show people why it's an anti-woman statement instead of just somebody being upset? These are things that don't help unless you get some distance from it and go, look, attacking my fertility in a discussion about games, like, That's very odd. And people said it's the same for men, but it's really not. It's sexual competence for men. Not like, can you keep it up? Can you please a woman? Not, can you squeeze out a kid? They are very different. Is one better or worse? They're just different. They show how men and women are shoved in different boxes by society, and non-binary people are fucked right now. And it just shows that the minute someone disagrees with you on anything, they will take that cheap shot. And really, I think a better gaming community is everyone rising to the challenge and going, that's not relevant, right? We're all responsible for keeping things hinged. Find your hinge. Find your hinge. Don't worry about other people being unhinged. Find your own hinge. Stay on your hinges, right? Let's talk about these things in bounds so we can actually find solutions, not just create these massive enemies lists or block lists based on really the flimsiest of conceits. And people are missing out on some really, really good experiences because they have this aversion to stories that center people who they see as not like them. And not like us is a powerful social motivator. Remember, they not like us. They not like us from last summer, right? Yeah. It's powerful. In-group, out-group dynamics are powerful. But for gaming, especially things that aren't those really safe, going to sell 15 million, 20 million copies, AAA games, more cohesion is very important to that. And modeling validation, right? As opposed to demanding your opponents accept challenge, but not me. That is a much better way to discuss these things, right? And boundaries are essential and this is the crux of the issue. I really do believe that the people that turn to games for succor, there's a word, like for solace, for not the Dragon Age character. I love Solus. But see, there's an example of, I've been a Solus stan for ages, and that was not popular during the Inquisition era. And Inquisition stans kind of ruined the Dragon Age franchise. Because Dragon Age Inquisition sold so well, but the completion rates were shit. So people think, oh, the game sold well, we've got momentum, but in fact, it killed the momentum because people bought it. That's what sales figures indicate, but they didn't enjoy it. Not like the first two games. And people were really freaking rough on Dragon Age 2. And I still think I enjoyed Dragon Age 2 way more than Inquisition, especially on my second playthrough of Dragon Age 2. And those toxic fan bases do get coddled by various devs. Because the model is they're going to be your proselytizers. They're going to be the ones that go out and evangelize your game. So don't piss them off. So, BioWare is a bunch of people that know the latest like progressive buzzwords. Larian fans like nihilism, cynicism, and really kinky sex. Witcher fans like all the Larian things, but they also have more sort of a work a day, new boss, same as the old boss kind of vibe. every game studio has this, right? The question is what happens when that core fan isn't numerous enough to sell the 20 million copies that AAA games require. And so you need kind of those casual fans who, Death Stranding 2 just came out and said, look, we have Hollywood celebrities in these games. People are going to play this because they're a fan of Norman Reedus. Shit, yeah, we have an easy mode. And I think that's honestly, for me, something we should encourage, because people might go, that's easy mode. Okay, so they're not going to play it. But you have to pick who you're going to cater to and who you're not. No game is for everybody. And that is not an indication that the devs hate, say, people who want completing the game to be some big badge of pride, right? Like, say, Elden Ring. Though Elden Ring on FromSoft standards, I would argue Elden Ring is actually much easier than Bloodborne, definitely easier than Sekiro. Even easier than some of the Dark Souls, because you can just level, get through the main game. It's the optional fights that are quite difficult. Now, okay, I'm not saying the game's easy. No, I'm not one of those. It was easy. I don't like those people. Because if it was easy, then it's no flex that you beat it. Think. Don't just be a dick. And there's a lot of hurt in various core fan bases of gaming because we need more people, because the core is not enough to make revenues rise as much as costs have risen with all the graphics innovations and sound innovations and, massive open world games that are 90 gigs in size. The way that problem has been solved has not always been great. So there are people that do feel cast aside. Absolutely fair. Talking about this in a way that challenges everybody but validates everybody is, to me, the way to go. And that means, I'm somebody who played Silksong so much I hurt my thumb, and there's certain things I really don't like about that game, but I kept at it. Those games are my crack. I freaking love Cuphead, even though to this day I hate the fucking devil fight at the end. And it's the King Dice fight mixed with the devil fight, like just but I do it. I'm a bit of a masochist, or a lot of one. But I still play Death Stranding for the emotionality of it. And I do think we need more people who can look at these games and go, yes, I accept developers have the right to make the game they want to make. Just because I think there's too much goddamn pogo platforming in Silksong too early in the game. They have the right to make it if they want, And Sherma is the breakout character of that game. Praise Sherma. But there's an example. Sherma's canonically a boy. And there has been no freaking out about that, even though most people thought he was a girl. Why? I don't know. I think they just don't make certain assumptions about Team Cherry that they may make about, say, BioWare or Ubisoft. And part of this is a failure of the developers. They let the wrong people talk too much. They let some disgruntled former employees, yes, NDAs will end, but they did not do enough to kind of soothe those hurt feelings and kind of bury the hatchet. And so some stuff has come out that I will just say is inconsistent with the reporting I did at the time about the development of those games. The idea that there was no plan for any sequels after Dragon Age Origins is... I saw concept art that proves that that's just not true. Right? Like, I can't unsee that. I'm not going to be gaslit by stuff that former devs said on podcasts. And this matters. Does that mean the person's a bad person? No. Am I still pissed that, high-ranking BioWare devs lied to my face about whether you played as a Talvashoth mercenary or true Qunari as a mage in Dragon Age Inquisition? Yes, I am still pissed. That was just a lie. They knew better, and I don't know why they did that, but that was the job, right? Collect, ask them the questions, see if they're consistent. There's a reason I don't necessarily trust that pack of BioWare devs now when they start telling stories, right? This matters. And again, does that mean they're bad people? Absolutely. Does that mean they don't care? No, of course they care. They wouldn't still be this upset if they didn't care. But does everybody has foibles? Does every studio have some stuff we need to keep them honest about? Yes, absolutely. And I don't think it's so much criticism. No one is immune to criticism that we should focus on. It should be accountability. Do you have a track record of delivering on, what you, and some of the ones that claim to stand up for players, I mean, CDPR's PR people really shielded those devs from any sort of criticism. They cut you off if you wanted to ask them about certain creative choices in, especially The Witcher 2. Larian is going the same way, and I have concerns about that. And I mean, I say this not again because I think Larian are bad people. I just think, guys, use Cyberpunk as a cautionary tale. Fan goodwill evaporates when you spend too much time, locked in a room with yourselves, sniffing your own farts. Stop seeing yourselves as the saviors of gaming and start seeing yourself as craftsmen who make a really good product. The results speak for themselves. Stop criticizing other industry colleagues. Say your position. And how do you do that with within the AAA model? And I'm sorry, Larian's a AAA studio right now. There's another thing that if Kojima Productions can go, yeah, we make AAA games, then Baldur's Gate 3 is a AAA game. I don't care what anybody says. It's about budgets. It's about scope. It's about how much it made. 1, 2, 3, Larian, right? Oh, they're not owned by a major publisher. That's moot in the age of Steam. It really is. And the fact that it's so easy for, third-party developers to get things published on Game Pass and Xbox and, games for Windows and PlayStation now. That is a distinction without a difference in terms of the AAA designation. And these are all things that you can disagree with me. Okay. But there's a way to disagree that isn't, you barren old saggy bitch, which is where people go to. And yeah, I'm mocking those people. Because even if any of that was true, one, I'd like to see a pic of you, dude. No, really, really, I don't. But also, I could be gender swap Steve Buscemi, only weigh 500 pounds. I still have a right to an opinion about a video game. How I look, my age, what my ovum are doing. These things are not relevant, and we really need greater accountability in the industry with that, because the minute people start doing that, none of us can really ask for a more validating environment. If I am expected to take that kind of nonsense, which is the opposite of validating and welcoming, I mean, let's fucking face it. If I'm expected to take that, everybody is. And I do think, unfortunately, that the years of normalized trash talk did beat the crap out of sort of the core gamer demographic to a point that they don't understand, they can't verbalize, and they are feeling very beat up, and they do want some validation, and that's absolutely fair. You know, I think that there should be... I love the Alan Wake games, and those are centered on a fucked up white dude, right? They don't shy away from some of it's his own fucking fault, but, you know, he's still a sympathetic figure, and I have no goddamn problem with it. I really don't care about the race and gender of playable characters in video games. I personally think the supporting characters in a game, I mean, the Far Cry series, you know, Vaas, Pagan Min, those, what's his name? Gus Fring in Far Cry 6. I don't even remember that fucking character's name because he's fucking Giancarlo Esposito, man. We can talk about this stuff, and it's better for everyone if there's enough validation, like I just did for the people who are particularly nasty to me. I believe their pain is real. I will not accept the way they go about expressing it, right? But it's real. Like, yeah, you have every reason to feel disappointed and feel sidelined and kicked to the curb, even. I get it. Yeah, totally fair. Just let's work together. And I think that if we create that accountability so that validation can happen, then people are more open to challenges. I know that devs that are happy and feel supported at work, whose self-esteem is not demolished by regular abuse, they are more open to feedback and correction than somebody who's barely hanging on. This is just basic psychology, right? We're supposed to be smart people. We're supposed to be nerds. We're supposed to know this stuff. The problem is that the minute someone hits a certain threshold of emotional compromise, emotion hijacks reason. And we see this again and again and again and again in gaming debates. And I don't think that challenge can exist without validation. I mean, that is the appeal of really hard games. God, I played that fucking Ninja Turtles game back in the day. That's fucking swimming level. And so when you see the meme, you're like, yes, right? Like DiCaprio meme. But the validation there is that we were a part of something that is a shared experience. And as gaming has grown, that sense of shared experience has decreased to the point that we need to get that validation in ways that aren't hazing via verbal abuse in multiplayer. Like that ship has sailed. That era is over. Nobody likes it. Even people who put up with it, it's generally agreed that sort of reduces the fun factor. Even if we can handle it, even if it doesn't reduce it much, it does reduce it, you know? I mean, the thing that always gets me is when guys are like, you know, the string of verbal abuse they fling at me, and I go, you know what? Shut the fuck up. Oh, grow thicker skin, that was uncalled for. There's a complete lack of self-awareness. You know, I'm just stating facts. Well, no, you have no idea, you know, what my personal body is doing. And that's an assumption based on my age. So, no, it's not just facts, but also they're irrelevant. And I do think that this cycle of sort of validation and challenge, you can't separate one from the other because together you get accountability. And people flip out at the use of the word accountability because it's been used in some organizations to perpetuate abuse. But accountability is not blame. Accountability is own your part. You know, okay, you lost it and you said some nasty shit. Don't think you're a bad person, but the consequence is I'm not going to take your criticism seriously. Like, you're not coming at this from a regulated place. There's no point in listening to you. Well, you should learn to handle criticism. This is handling criticism, because a big part of handling criticism is knowing what criticism to listen to versus ignore. And that's it. That's the game. If you want to be somebody who's listened to, you need to validate as well as challenge. And you need to be able to accept challenge and validation. You can't be so distrusting that you are a sinking black hole emotional vampire all the time because nothing feels good. So you're missing look, I see your point. I understand that you have a right to be upset. You've got the germ of a point here. Let's just shape it so you can be more effective. People fucking miss that all the time. And there's a certain point where you just can't throw any more energy after bad. It's like if somebody just wants to piss and moan and, replicate how their abusive dad or their school bully or their psycho ex talk to them, they're in a fight against themselves and nobody else can get through. There's no compromise to be had. There's no moving forward together. They're locked in a death battle with their own past and it's not productive. So remember, validation plus challenge equals accountability. We're gamers. We can do this. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Like and subscribe to this channel as well if you like this content. Thanks for watching.